everybody. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm like all surprised and stuff. Welcome to In like he didn't just give me a countdown. Wait, welcome to In the Now on my TCN TV network. So, first set of news, it's snowing. I don't know. Yeah, April, snow. I don't know, guys. You tell me what your thoughts are about that. Please feel free. Leave a comment. You live in Toronto right now and you're pissed that it is snowing outside. Leave a comment. It's very important that this weather understand how pissed off we are, okay? That it is snowing. It is horrible outside. Today, guys, I have an exciting day today. So let's go over a few housekeeping things first before we dive into the show. So we have a two-part show today. Today, I have a little bit of news for you. Some sad news, some news that you're just going to be like, really? And then, of course, we have some of the important things that are happening here in Toronto. And our second half, to add to the importance of what's going on in Toronto, we have a special guest. So before we go further, I hope everyone has picked up. I'm proud of this one. This week's the latest edition of Toronto Caribbean newspaper. Why? Because I actually wrote the cover story. I was very, very excited and I'm proud of myself. But besides that, like, if you haven't read this paper yet, sometimes I go to people, I ask them, have you seen the paper? Like, no. And I'm like, I don't know how you haven't, but here is one. Because, like, this paper is the bomb. I don't know what to say. And again, I'm not just saying that because I write for it. It's a really good paper. It's nice. It's colorful. It's placed well. There's really good ads in there. There's good commentary, good writing. So if you're a reader, good paper to pick up. And of course, we've been talking about it. And if you guys don't already know about it, May 6th, which is a Sunday, so it's a good day because usually Sundays people, if they're not in church, don't have anything to do. And if you are in church, the great thing is you can come after to the business social, which is happening at Pearson Convention Center, 2638 Steeles Avenue. And I don't know what to say, Market Zone. So I don't know if anyone's been here. If you haven't, I'll tell you about Market Zone. Imagine walking to a huge flea market and meeting really good people. That's the experience. You walk in and you're going to find one-of-a-kind things that you're not just going to find at any store at this Market Zone. We have 80 vendors coming. 80. Like, think about that. That's a huge flea market. Who would not want to go to a flea market? So not just that, this year, we also have a second part to it, which is called the Next Level. So here, if you're interested, you get to sit down and listen to a panel that has a lot of really cool people on it. So Gerald Johnson, we have Shireen Mishar, the caterer, the inspirer. We have Jamel Lindo, Hugh Anthony. And, okay, guys, you have me. Yay. I will be there putting in my 2 cents. Also, we have keynote speakers, Mishi Me, and we have Simone Denny. And so we have really, really, really great stuff happening. So besides that, if you do get a chance, though, please come out. You can get your tickets at Eventbrite. I'll actually have that up for you a little bit later on, and you'll be hearing from me. Trust me, anyone who's connected to me is going to hear about this social. So let's talk about what's going on now in Ontario when it comes to money. So a significant investment of $2.1 billion over 4 years to improve access to mental health care and addiction services in today's budget is good news for a lot of families here. So they're putting in about $2.1 billion. This is what the government is saying right now. This new money is over and above the $3.8 billion already being spent annually on mental health services and comes conveniently against the backdrop of the June 7th election. So I remember when I first heard this, and we're going to go into a little bit more. My first thing was, like, I don't know if they have anyone who tells them this, but sometimes when you're dropping news like this, you got to understand, some people are just going to kind of be like, wow, you had all this time to do this, and right before the election, you're dropping this. So it's going to come up. Nearly half of families receive services from Children's Aid because of adult mental health issues. The right support at the right time can help ensure child welfare services are not needed. So I have a little thing up there, having a summit, my very first slide there. The Ontario Association of Children's Aid Societies and Children Aid Societies have expressed that although they are encouraged by several initiatives and investments announced in the budget, they were hoping to see more targeted investment in child welfare services to help the province's most vulnerable children. So they're saying, we love the money, but we wish you guys would have put more attention on what's happening with childcare and vulnerable children in Ontario. So they want specifically, I'm going to go through this list quickly, Ontario's new age of protection. On January 1st, 2018, the Ontario Youth, Child and Family Service Act was amended to increase the age of protection to include all children under the age of 18 years old. Under these amendments, 16 and 17-year-olds who are in need of protection are now eligible for a full range of child protection services, which I think is wonderful. So they have raised the age to under 19. Now, Alim Punja, he's one of the advocates for the Provincial Child Protection Information Network. I also have a picture of him there. They say, and he says, that Ontario is working with Children's Aid Society to modernize the information systems used to share data on children in the care of Children's Aid Societies. CPIN is the new Child Protection Information Network currently in development. It will allow Children's Aid Societies to securely share with one another confidential child protection information and better manage cases. So basically information being swapped, but of course it being done confidentially. And of course they want help with this budget. Some of this money they want to be going towards programs like this. Now they say that this budget contains no reference to any of these issues. Despite this, the budget's plan to make preschool children childcare free for children aged 2.5 until they were eligible for kindergarten has potential benefit to many of the families. So they're saying that they're going to be giving some free childcare. So of course there's some concern, and I have a quick video courtesy of the National over some of the concerns that are involved with this free childcare.
Good.
Push-ups? No problem. Finding an affordable daycare spot. Now that's often an exercise in frustration. Meg Gingrich had her baby on wait lists before he was even born, and the going back to work clock is ticking.
Universal not-for-profit childcare from a young age, then maybe it would, but this on its own would not convince me.
Not convinced that the promise of free childcare when these little guys turn 2.5 is more than just that, a promise.
Our plan to make preschool childcare absolutely free for kids in Ontario from the age of...
Today's announcement is just the latest big-ticket offering from Ontario's Liberals.
$2.1 billion in new funding for programs that will reshape the mental health care system, increasing hospital budgets across Ontario by $822 million. $2.4 billion for the design and construction of a new patient care centre.
All from a party and a leader trailing dismally in the polls, and just 2.5 months away from the election. Cue the outrage from the opposition, who call it all a political Hail Mary.
She's trying to go and buy votes with money she doesn't have. These checks are going to bounce.
The people are apparently pretty fed up with the Liberals. I mean, polls continue to show that that people don't want Kathleen Wynne and the Liberals at the helm anymore.
So as you can see, there's a lot being said, and I have some thoughts here for you just to end this segment. So one of the questions was, does the Liberal budget daycare plan change your feelings going into the election? So here are the polls, guys. So 37 to 39% said yes, we would love to have free licensed childcare. And 56% said no, this is just a last-ditch effort by Kathleen Wynne. And again, I do my best to stay objective on this show, but I would have to, I don't know. If I was going to take a subjective view on this, I would say as well, this looks like kind of like a last-ditch effort. It's just, there's plenty of time that they could have done this and it wasn't done. So under the Liberals' plan, the average Ontario family with one preschooler would save about $17,000, while families in Toronto, where childcare fees are among the highest in the country, would save even more. So it sounds really, really good. But we have leaders like Andrea Horwath. I do have a picture of her, where she kind of warns families that, listen, don't fall for this. Like, this is just a ploy. There was a clip of her earlier, but this is who Andrea is. And also Janet Davis, who is the East End Toronto councillor, she says that she worries about municipalities because they're having these plans, saying they're going to implement it, but when is it going to actually happen? So there are many parents across Ontario who will side with relief and get themselves on a waiting list tomorrow, Davis said. But for most parents who are trying to get back to work with a young child, this is just a hope 2.5 years down the road. So It sounds really, really good, but everyone's worried. Like, again, is this just the liberals trying to save themselves, right? Who knows? So there's a concern to the lack of mention of specific programs and services. And this is why the Children's Aid Society is kind of saying, okay, what's going to go on with this money? Just like how I'm sure a lot of people living here in Ontario are feeling. So again, please share your thoughts about this. Free childcare sounds good, but is it for real? We'll be back on In the Now.
We are doing this event for the community. But what if CEO actually stood for catching every opportunity? This week alone, I've seen 3 businesses that shut their doors in this community.
Investing in yourself, like you have to know what your brand is first. So there's no other way that you're going to build a brand unless you network. You have to eventually get out there.
And it stems down to a lot of times not having the right knowledge, the right know-how.
Welcome back, everybody, on this snowy Friday. Has anyone left any comments yet about what they feel about this? Is anyone else as pissed off as I am? Why are the flakes so big? This is my question. Like, not even like Lickle flakes. They're those big, dirty flakes that when they hit you, they kind of hurt because they're so big. So, April, guys, thoughts about that? Again, please let me know. So, let's go into this because we do have a very full show today. This part is a little bit sad for me, and when I did hear it, I was just like, okay, I have to talk about this. The great Winnie Mandela, she passed this week. She died at the age of 81. And for most, she is just a beautiful woman. Like, she is everything that is African. And she's considered the mother of the nation by many South Africans. Winnie Mandela was a key figure in the struggle against the apartheid. It was Miss Mandela who took his baton after Nelson Mandela was jailed for life, becoming an international symbol of resistance to apartheid. She too was jailed for her role in the fight for justice and equality. While Nelson Mandela spoke about reconciling with the white oppressors, Winnie Mandela built a reputation fighting against them. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't understand that her stance was different from her husband's stance. She was very much a fighter. In the last years, her reputation suffered legally and politically. She was convicted for kidnapping and sexual assault in 1991 and given a 6-year prison sentence that was later reduced to 5. But it was proven that the murder of 14-year-old Stumpy CP or Stumpy Sepe was used to divide and destabilize the Black community in South Africa. The apartheid government exploited the narrative to turn the Black community against Winnie Mandela, since it was believed that she ordered the torture and killing. It wasn't until it came out that there was a reinvestigation and the actual person, his name is Jerry Richardson, they discovered that it was him, this man here, who killed Stumpy, because Stumpy found out that Jerry was actually a former police informer. So after that, of course, Winnie Mandela said no more. She started to take a stand. So she was actually accused of conducting a virtual reign of terror in parts of Soweto by other members of the ANC in the late 1980s and heard back into practice of necklacing, which means putting burning tires around suspected informants' necks. So this woman was no joke. She was convicted of bank fraud in 2003, but still she remained a member of the African National Congress Party until her death. So there was a lot of things that, again, these were just things that we don't know if she was actually being arrested and it was to stick, or if they were doing this to try to get back at her because of the fact that she was fighting so hard for her people. There's been a lot of people who are actually people right now who are still jailed who have fought for Black people. So who knows why she was convicted for a lot of these things. In April 2016, the government and the president Jacob G. Zuma gave Winnie one of the highest honors, the Order of Luthuli, given in part for her contributions. I can't even talk today. Contributions to the struggle of the Democratic Party and her people. So I'm going to end this with a really short clip. I love this picture of her. She was just beautiful. Just a beautiful woman, a beautiful soul, and a fighter. This woman did a lot for her people. I have a very short clip that I want to end with just so you can see the power that was behind Miss Winnie Mandela.
I shall never lose hope, and my people shall never lose hope. In fact, we expect that the work will go on.
Very strong woman. Sad to see her gone. Definitely will miss her. She'll be a missed entity in this world, but she's joined the ancestors. And now us left here, we got to continue the fight. That's what we have to do in her honor. So moving on from that, we need to talk about some other things that are happening right now. So most recently, there was this scripted message that was given and delivered from news anchors to their audiences across different news stations. And I'm going to share that with you in a second, but let's talk about it first. So the Sinclair Broadcast Group, these news anchors all work for the same parent company, which is called the Sinclair Broadcast Group, which owns 193 local broadcast stations across the country. Okay, so they own a lot of stations. You might think that your local television stations with names like WXYZ TV, KXAN, or KMOV are owned by national networks like ABC or Fox, but that's often not the case. They are merely affiliated with the national network, but most are owned by the companies called station groups that have purchased a portfolio of stations in different cities with different network affiliations. So Tribune Media, Nexstar, and Tegna are examples of some of these station groups, but the largest, they say, of course, is Sinclair. So I'm going to play the clip that they've been talking about, and we're going to talk a little bit about the politics behind it, but watch this clip. It's amazing. It truly is.
Responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling, irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to our mental state. Okay, what is this? Like, but just so you could understand, guys, you have to be so mindful of what you're watching. So there's a lot going on, of course, in the media about this. The term, actually, fake news, has gained prominence in recent years, thanks to, of course, the U.S. President, Mr. Donald Trump, as he attacks against the media during the 2016 election. It was actually in the Collins Dictionary, and I have I do have a clip of that. It's a 2017 word of the year. The Collins Dictionary has it as a 2017 word of the year. And the funny thing about it is that a lot of the fake news is coming from them, and they coined this whole fake news and put it in a dictionary. It's interesting. So, guys, you know what? With this, I guess without going into too much of it, we have to be very aware of what we're watching and the news that we're getting. Like, again, you just saw like 20 different stations all say the same thing. Like, does that make it true? No, it doesn't make it true. You have to learn to do your own research and dig deeper. I have actually a segment here, which I'm not going to have time to go into, where I kind of look at stuff that's been going on with Facebook, how Mark Zuckerberg has kind of gone silent, how they had a lot to do with the elections and pushing people and persuading people. Be careful, guys. So again, be very mindful of what you're watching and how you're watching it. And in our next segment, I have a special guest. We'll see you guys soon. I'm not going to tell you who it is. See you soon.
No one wants to live outside the box. We play it safe. But if you had told me all those years ago that I'd go on to win Juno Awards and Much Music Awards, I would have laughed.
All right, stay with me. Here we go. Hands up! Reach for the sky. Come on. And hold your head up high for tonight. And every night, you're what? Yes!
To be distinct, you must be different. So I'm going to tell you this. Love Inc.'s You're a Superstar went on to explode onto the Canadian dance scene. It not only was a hit in Canada, it was a hit internationally. Top 5 in the UK, across Europe and into Australia. Our music was everywhere. Radio, TV, video, fashion, television. I was on tour across Canada, branching into the US and Europe. Our music was everywhere. Our video was everywhere.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back, everybody. So you can see it's been a takeover. The urban resolution has taken over my show. It's no longer in the now. Just pretend I'm not even here. It's the Just Think show as of right now.
First. Just Think First.
Just Think First show. So I would like for the two gentlemen in the room, for those who don't know, introduce yourselves, please.
Hello, my name is Roderick Brereton. I am the co-founder of Urban Res Solutions, a change management / conflict management strategy organization working out of the city of Toronto.
And the man in the middle.
The man in the middle. My name is Farley Flex, and I am also a co-founder of Urban Res Solutions. We work on building community capacity, engaging youth, on reaching before teaching, a myriad of things, juxtaposition with a lot of work that we do in terms of the entertainment industry and so on and so forth as well.
I was gonna say, like, you sound so formal. Like,
So formal.
Go back. Who are you?
Go back.
Go back.
Okay.
Go back. Who are you? We're gonna get into this, what they're doing right now, because it is a very important movement. So I definitely want to go there. But for the young ones who may not know who you are.
All right, so I'll go back. I'll go in the
Way
reverse order.
back.
Order chronologically. Okay, so reverse order chronologically. Well, I was a judge on Canadian Idol for 6 years.
There you go.
Canada's quote-unquote most successful show ever. Prior to that, I was the head of business development and one of the founding music directors at Flow 93.5.
There you go.
And prior to that, I managed recording artists, principally a gentleman named Maestro Fresh West, who was Canada's first platinum pop culture artist.
There you
Black
go.
artists, especially. Prior to that, I do concerts, parties, all sorts of fun stuff.
There you go. So we have a man with a lot behind them, and let's go back for you too.
Okay.
Go back.
So,
Go back.
Yeah, I can go back a little bit. So besides Urban Res Solutions and within that social realm, I've also did quite a bit within the entertainment sector myself. I've produced records with Cornerstone, which is a production team out of Scarborough. We've produced Juno Award-winning records. And also, prior to that, in terms of my rap career or my rap delving into it, we produced music for EA Sports, which is the video game giant. So we've done that and, had millions of sales in that regard. Not dollars in my pocket, but millions of sales.
That's all good.
But
It's still there.
But
It's
so,
still,
we've been around. We've been, always, not always on the forefront for myself, but, always in the background. And
All
doing
right.
the thing.
All right. So when I first heard about this, and of course I did a little bit of research, I was like, okay, I don't want to go too in because I really want to hear, I like to hear the authenticity of people when they're speaking about something that they're very truly moved by. So let's start talking about Just Think First. And I want to hear both of your sides on how this came together.
All right. So it technically started in 2016. We had been speaking to Chief Mark Saunders from Toronto Police, and we were telling him in regards to having a different approach on how we could attack gun violence and mitigate it within the communities. We think there needs to be more than just the suppression from the police, obviously, and how the community could get involved is speaking through a language that we're accustomed to. So obviously from the entertainment sector and understanding that formula, how it works in terms of repetition and then retention, we thought we would come up with some profound videos that tell stories on how we can community start to take a stand on talking to each other and thinking before we act, and not just thinking about the impulse of when things are happening or when we're hot-headed and go and do something that we may regret, but also having the bystanders, people in your lives, talk to you, because everybody knows what's going on when things are hot, right? And having people who are close to you speak to you and tell you, to think before you act, allow you to understand that there's more to it that you're going to be, taking away from the family as opposed to, just your act, right? So, your relationships with your spouses or, your boyfriends or girlfriends or, with your children, seeing those, those profound moments where, your child may first walk, if you do something that you will regret, then you're going to miss out on everything. So you miss out on, the fun stuff of life, right? And in terms of also what we do it was also an opportunity to help impart skills on how to critically think. So when you're in crisis, but also when not in crisis. So, from our model being a preventative standpoint, we give people the tools and the principles on how to get to that point of critical thinking and analyzing, self-evaluative thinking prior to crisis. So you're equipped to deal with it when that happens.
Okay, I'm hearing a lot of as I was listening to you, I'm hearing emotional intelligence. That's what
absolutely.
That's what I keep hearing is emotional intelligence, and it's something that I think is very important. So for you, how did you get involved with this?
Well, Roderick and I have been working on projects together for a long time. We converged our efforts in terms of, I guess, our equal passion for community, our passion for helping folks get the performance out of potential that everyone deserves an opportunity to understand. Potential is a static thing. There's no limit to it.
That's right.
But the thing is, performance is the variable, and those variables are often offset by personal or social circumstances.
Very true.
Largely in the social determinants of health. Things like poverty and health, and economics, and all those things are very, very much impactive on someone's potential. So, we believe that the pillars of society, being, government, corporate, the faith communities, education, the family itself, and so forth, when one falls off in terms of their role, the other four should really be picking up so that momentum continues in the right direction. So oftentimes, when poverty plays a part, a lot of families aren't functioning at the highest level of efficiency, so the family unit is not performing to its potential. So we create programs and ideologies and pedagogies around that to ensure that young people, when they interact with us or the folks who work with us, get a leg up in terms of identifying themselves through what we call their IPS, which is their interests, their personality traits, and their skill sets. Okay. And we align that with what we call their GPS, which is the way they navigate through the social system, so that they can ultimately achieve the goals and attain the goals that they've set for themselves, or that they've been introduced as being applicable to them. Because a lot of people just don't know. And in our programming, when we work with youth especially, we treat the three words "I don't know" almost like a curse word, right? Because it can be a cop-out.
Absolutely.
Right, and those vague sort of terminologies, when you're communicating, leave room for misinterpretation. So we always say to the young folks in our programs, you can say "I don't know," but it has to be supported by "but I'll Google it," or "but I'll ask my mom," or "but I'll ask my teacher," or "I'll ask my brother," whatever it is.
Right.
So that they can be a little more accurate about their own intentions, and the more accurate you are about your goals and intentions, the more likely you are to hit the target.
Okay. Without getting, I am going to get a little personal. Again, whenever a movement is started, or when someone is urged to do something intrinsically,
Okay.
It usually comes from an experience of their own.
Absolutely.
So is there an experience that you both had that kind of moved you each to do this? Because again, you can do something, but if you're not really truly passionate about it, if there's not something behind it that moves you, you can't relate to it as well as someone who's like, yes, I've experienced violence in this aspect, and this is how it's changed me, or I did something that caused problems for me, so this is why I can speak on it, why it's probably not a good idea. You should think first. What are your experiences with that?
So I can speak on that. Being from Scarborough myself, I can take it back from my public school days. And I usually do in terms of telling the story of how I got into this. So from grade 3, there was a group of young boys, and we went out on recess. And just being destructive, and I guess, not
kids.
having kids, right? We didn't have a really good way to channel our energy. So basically, we went out, and it was wintertime, and there was a skating rink, and there was boards, and somebody started tearing down the boards, and all of us got involved in it, and the boards came down, the teachers came out, and at that point in time, Scarborough wasn't as racially diverse, obviously, as it is now, but we all got stopped and scolded, and the racialized kids went down to the office, and the white kids were just told to go back to class and never happen to this again.
Okay.
So that started my experience with the bench, and that's basically where you would have your detentions, and when you were punished, you would get down to the bench.
I remember that.
Right? I don't know if you've been down to the bench, but I was.
Yeah.
But from there, it basically was I was at the bench more than I was in the classroom.
Got it.
And it was also the racialized kids who were always down at the bench. And as Scarborough grew in terms of that diversity, there was just more of us at the bench. So we would actually, have our appointments at the bench. Like, we would meet each other at the bench, right? Because it was just now part of our daily routine.
You just knew it was going to happen.
So as that bench population grew, so did the quote-unquote the behaviors, right? So we were finding more now as opposed to just, being rude or obnoxious to the teachers. There was people stealing and going out at the corner store as we got older and whatnot. So with that, again, some of the more, I guess you could say, behaviors that were more violent in nature, like, people were fighting, and obviously as you got into the junior high, some people started bringing knives to school. But again, it was just a part of almost the social fabric now that we were accustomed to and normalized, right?
Okay.
And obviously I think we didn't know we were looking for attention, but as we didn't start out as quote unquote bad kids, but once it kept on being perpetuated within our own circles and manifested through the the school system, saying the bad kids at the bench, we took on that persona.
Of course.
So my parents always maintained, no matter how bad I was, much trouble I was getting into, I was going to university. I heard that from the time I was born. So it always stuck in the back of my head. And unfortunately, a lot of other kids who were at that bench group didn't hear that. So when it came down to high school, I started having to buckle down because I knew outside of the bench, I still had to fulfill my obligation to get education and
get to university.
Absolutely, right? So when I got to university, but I was always still with that bench crowd. No matter what was the dynamic, was always my boys and that bench crowd. And even though I was, starting to veer off and do certain things,
they were still there.
They were still, So at university, I had a good friend that I met who was also a bench kid. And, we were had the same classes and whatnot. And, we'd go to parties on weekends and whatnot. And there was one time I didn't go to a party, and it was in a park, and somebody with an idea of shooting into the crowd, had him shot and almost killed. So at that point in time, when I got the call from his mom, obviously it was crisis, and I'd known people who had been, injured or even killed in the past, but not so close. So it really started to resonate on why now is it always the bench kids who are in these problems, right? And I was in university at this time, maybe like second year university, but never really had thought about it. And, when I started to reflect and go back, I saw that there was a trend, like leading from when, that grade 3 in terms of the detentions and everything else. And, so many of the people who were on that bench had gone to jail and, had been, within the systems and whatnot, that I said, there's definitely a trend here, and then there's some common denominators. So because I was doing sociology and then being able to, I guess, delve into things more and see from a different lens and a psychological lens also, I started to put the pieces together.
Okay.
And at that point in time, and he lived, thank God, but I started at that sense of time to say that I'm going to dedicate what I'm going to do to reduce or mitigate the factors of people who are coming up, the other future generations, to have to go through that bench process and, to be steered wrong. And, a lot of people who had gone that bench route, may have been making money and doing all the different things as teens and in their early 20s. But, after you get knocked, as they say, after you go into the bin, as they say, and you come back out, you have nothing to do besides the same thing or go on social assistance, life is pretty miserable for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And and I think we're a lot more than that, and I can understand the system and how it works, and why not now bring that awareness to the younger generations and allowing them to see that this is not actually a way that is going to be sustainable or you can maintain even in terms of yourself or a family in the future, and obviously understanding that you're only a teenager for so long and in your 20s for so long, and then once that adulthood strikes, you've got to be prepared for what's next.
Yep, very
so
true.
That's how I got into it, and that's continues my fuel. And doing what we do.
No, I was gonna say, because I know. Can we get a few minutes? Is it okay if we get a few? Because I figured we had long commercials. I can keep them. Okay, thank you. I had to get the engineers okay.
All right.
It's interesting because now in my head, I made the connection for you. You mentioned that some of the kids that were on the bench who were friends of yours didn't have someone saying to them, "Go to university." So you've become that person.
My parents are Bajan, right? My parents are, well, yeah. My
wow.
Rest in peace, my father, right?
Jeez.
But here's what they didn't like. My parents were, every time they got a call from school, they were at the school, and obviously, even if I was in the wrong, Roderick, you in the wrong. What you tell you? Like, you know what I mean?
A lot, yes.
Like, so it was relentless. Right? And, you know, and you know, I have daughters right now. I've got 3 daughters who are nowhere close to bench kids, and you know, my mom is just so happy to have grandkids that she doesn't have to be running to the school for. When we get a call from the school, it's about, you know, how well my kids are doing and whatnot, and you know that they were gonna, like, my daughter's in a gifted school, and you know, my other daughter's in at the University of McMaster. So you know, it hasn't been that experience. So. You know, it's a good thing now.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So it's played out in your life, and for you, Flex.
Well, for me, it was I had two things I think that really kept me, because I was the same thing. I was on that cusp from a social standpoint, but I had sports. I was I excelled at sports my entire life, and you know, so I was always very performance oriented, whether it be in the classroom or on the playing field, and. You know, a lot of times when you're an athlete in this particular hemisphere anyway, you know, both sides of the coin, right, appreciate you. So the quote-unquote more edgy, antisocial behavior types, as well as the pro-social behavior types,
right.
I was right in the middle. So right. I would be, you know, athletic school president, or I would be class president, but at the same time, I'm hanging, and music is a big part of my life as well. So I'm hanging with the folks that were on the other side of the line, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
class president, like class clown.
That's why we work all together.
Best of both worlds.
So you know, that I say that to say that it inspires much of the work we do now. We utilize pop culture as a major engagement mechanism, and for me growing up, you know, I also had the important influence of my extended family. We have a family that has always had a very heightened appreciation for academics, not unlike Rod's parents.
Okay.
But we had it from an extended family perspective, like my closest cousins, my siblings, etc., all were achieving, again, both athletically and academically, right? Okay. So that took away a lot of the extra time that I might have had to, let's say, go to that quote unquote wrong side. Right. But in as we move forward, and I remember when I started managing recording artists, and I would get invited to the career day at various schools, and there'd be a doctor, a lawyer, a fireman, a nurse, an officer, a police officer, etc., and then there'd be Farley, who's talking about music and hip hop in his room, and the kids would just gravitate.
You're the
to my
cool
room.
guy.
Yeah, they just grab, and you know, people underplay the importance of cool factor, but cool factor,
it's very important.
It's a tremendous tool,
especially for kids, especially for the youth, especially for the youth.
Rod and I will do programs. I'm 55. I'll be 56 this year, and kids will say, when they guess my age or Rod's age, they'll say 25. 30, like they don't see us as elder.
Beautifully,
because they're going, because we understand their vernacular.
Yes.
We understand what appeals to them. We speak to them on a level that they speak to each other in.
Absolutely.
And in every document we put out for the communities and so forth, we ensure that we're speaking to youth in the language they speak to each other in. Right?
Awesome. Yeah.
And you know, so they don't see a communication gap. They'll text us like at random times and so on and so forth, where they won't text their parents. Or they won't text their obviously their teachers or what have you. So for me, it was always having that sense of what performance can get you in terms of getting to your potential. So, you know, when, you know, the odd time when I'm up for some sort of award or something, I'm thinking I'm just getting started. And, you know, people are looking like, oh, you've done this, done that. I'm thinking about how Rod and I are going to the next level.
Right.
And for both geographically, systemically, et cetera, we have a lot that we can offer. And the major thing, which obviously we'll get to, I hope we'll get to.
We're going to.
Is how we work in a collaborative capacity with other organizations and like-minded people who understand that collective impact is the actual answer.
So you know what, because we've kind of just been flowing now, how much time do I have left? Can I give them a chance to talk about the pop-up event? Because that's really why you're here.
Yeah,
it's to talk about what's happening tomorrow.
Yes?
Tomorrow.
3 minutes? Beautiful. We got 3 minutes.
All right.
Talk to us about it. And I have the very last photo is an actual ad. Don't worry about them. Tell us about the event.
So City Pop-Up Toronto. So we've done 3 pop-ups altogether thus far. We've done Hamilton, Windsor, and Ottawa. Had amazing turnouts at each one of them. And tomorrow is City Pop-Up Toronto. So at the pop-ups, we have dialogue in regards to solutions to violence in our communities. That is the focus. And obviously, we just don't want to have talk that's going to have people, I won't say bored, because obviously the conversation is never boring.
Right.
But, we have to intertwine music and arts and food and things that people enjoy within that. So, so we've called it the pop-up, and just in terms of, obviously, that youth language. And, it's basically an event filled with engagement. Absolutely. Meaningful engagement and youth-empowered engagement.
Right.
So what we're asking youth to do right now is to come out tomorrow and be a part of the solution. And we have a saying: if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we need everybody to be at the table. So youth and also stakeholders who are invested in youth, and also people who just have a general interest of moving the community forward and moving that needle in terms of us getting to that space where we need to be as a community.
Okay, who are some people in the next 2 minutes you can tell me who are going to be there tomorrow along with you two?
Sure.
You're talking about stakeholders and other people who's involved tomorrow.
So what we've done is we did what were called stakeholder meetings for each city. We did the same in Toronto, and we have a network obviously in Toronto because we live in this general area of people who are in the trenches the same way we are. And we've always, even from the first iteration of Just Think First, we reached out to partners and said, okay, we're doing this, we know you've been doing this, let's go together. Right, and that's the key message that we really want to send in terms of the pop-up, because the pop-up is really a seed that's being planted to grow a collaborative fruit where everyone can benefit by contributing and so on and so forth. So in terms of participants, well, we've got our co-host is Femi Lawson, a great young friend of ours who's doing really big things. On the entertainment side, we have Randall Ajay from Rise Poetry. He's another person reaching out to youth and inspiring them on a regular weekly basis, let's say. We've got Ifa Hussein is a phenomenal poet. We've got a young man that I manage named Ryan E. Douglas from Brampton. We've got Jade Inc., who was one of the real earth-shaking performers on the launch on CTV. We've got a young lady named Shanika Maria, who is also a talented singer-songwriter. We've got a breakdance crew from one of our programs in Scarborough that we're given an opportunity to showcase their talent. And then from a stakeholder standpoint, did I miss anybody?
No, I think we got and a DJ, Dem Dog.
DJ Dem Dog, who's an engager of youth in his own capacity, and stakeholders. We have people from First Fridays, from other community organizations that work with
Peel Police, Toronto Police,
Absolutely.
The different social organizations across the city. So anybody again who may work with youth directly to mitigate violence or indirectly. So like for instance, if somebody comes from grassroots basketball, even though they may not be on the ground saying, hey guys, don't pick up that that knife or that gun or whatever, saying it in so many words, but in terms of their engagement with them and having them coming out and practicing and developing regiment and whatnot, that is ultimately taking up their time usefully and mitigating violence at the same time.
They could easily be doing something else, right?
Absolutely.
That is
awesome. So we've got a wide array of people at the table.
Okay, so where can they get tickets? Where can they go for the pop-up? Give them those details before we leave.
It's absolutely free, number one. F-R-E-E.
Free. Right? I like that word.
Right. It's best to register at justthinkfirst.com/Toronto, just so that you could actually be in line for the prize, which are Raptors tickets. The Raptors are also involved. They've been at the table. Thank you very much to Courtney Charles and Coach Casey.
Absolutely.
But you can come up to 789 Yonge Street, which is a little bit north of Bloor on Yonge. Tomorrow between 12 and 5, we're having the networking from 12 to 1, and then the session starts at 1 o'clock. So be prompt, come on time and be a part of the solutions.
Come on time.
Come on time.
Come on time. Do you hear that, Caribbean? Because this is who we're showing this to. be on time.
The reality is we can't be late for our own progression.
No, thank you. The seriousness of it. I was just being silly, but all right.
No. I told the Bajans to come at 10 o'clock, so I'll wait, man.
I want to thank you guys both for coming in and speaking to the MyTCN TV network about this. I know it's going to be a good event.
Are you going to be there? You're going to come?
I'm working.
Okay.
But
at the event.
Listen, no.
Yeah.
In my defense, I'm still contributing because I work with children and I'm doing classes tomorrow. So
right.
I will be doing in my own little way, keeping them out of trouble.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when you're done, tell them to come down to the pop-up.
And I can tell them to come down to the pop-up. So everyone, thank you for tuning
Thank
in.
you.
We will see everyone next week. Bye.
And remember, just think first.
Just think first. Bye.